Now we're moving to second one, connective tissue. Connective tissue is a pretty big amount inside of the bodies and like all over the body. So that's the second category, connective tissue here. Connective tissues, they have their basic functions connected to each other, yeah. Bonding together, and the support function, protection function, and the insulating functions, and the formed structures. So they have a lot of functions. And also have transport functions. Also can storage for energy. Lot of functions. And connect tissue with lot of different category also. So now we're talking about the type of the connective tissue. So generally speaking, we have 5 different types of connective tissue. By their shape, we separate loosened connective tissue and dense connective tissue. By their structures, we also have cartilage and bone tissue. Sometimes we call cartilage is a soft bone. And also connective tissue, including the liquid part. Liquid connective tissue, blood and lymph. So blood and lymph category belong to connective tissue. And certainly their function mainly transport materials. So that's the basic picture of connective tissue. So now let's come back to connective tissue. Connective tissue. So generally say we have 5 different types of the connective tissue. The first one we call it a loose connective tissue. We will go over these 5 different types one by one. The first one we call it a loose connective tissue. So loose connective tissue, because the fibers in there is not that much, we say that's loosening between the cells. That's why it named it. Yeah, that's why it named it. So loose connective tissue, we can thinking about less cells, more fibers. Yeah, less cells, more fibers. So still some example here. We take some connective tissue still under the skin part, and make it enlarging 400 times. Then we can see some cells inside. So basically the cells will have nucleus, will have cover. So that's one cell, that's another one cell, another one cell here. Certainly we have different kind of cells. If you didn't see the nucleus, that's the fibrous. Yeah, that's the fibrous. So loose connective tissue means the same picture in here, that's the cells, and that's the fibrous. So that means less cells and even less fibrous. Thus we say loose connected tissue. Here is another example. Yeah, here is another example. So loose connective tissue can locate it in different part of body. So that's coming from the superficial of the heart, some fat tissue there, fat tissue there, and then make enlarging, enlarging. So that still belong to loose connective tissue. And also, it can coming from lymph nodules, Look like coming from lymph nodules, we have more cells compared with the last picture, and a little bit more fabric in there. But when we go to dense, that still belong to loose. Yeah, that still belong to loose. So we got a different kind of shape and coming from different part of the body. We have loose connected tissue. So opposite to loose is the dense. Yeah, dense connective tissue. Dense connective tissue generally say they have more fibers or fibers connect each other more closely, more thicker, and also less cells compared with loose connective tissues. So mainly is the fabric, yeah, dense fabric. So from the video we know the dense fabric, they may have different shape. Sometimes shape is regular. Sometimes shape is irregular. And also we have some elastic kind of connective tissue. So that's this connective tissue. We still have some picture here. So these dense connective tissue coming from the tendons. We know the tendons is the ending part of the muscles. Yes, skeletal muscles. The ending part always have tendons, both sides. And the tendons belong to dense connective tissue. And they also belong to regular, dense regular. You can see the fabric and the fabric pretty the same directions, and the less cells inside. Yes, still have some cells, but compared with loose connective tissue, less cells, more fabric. So that's dense regular connective tissue here. And the dense irregular connective tissue. Yeah, dense irregular connective tissue. They still have a lot of fabric, but the direction is irregular. Yeah, so we can see like a irregular shape in there, and not many cells. Yeah, not many cells. So this part basically blood vessels. Yeah, it's not truly belong to dense irregular connective tissue. The other part, yeah, the other part we don't see. That's why cells here we don't see too many cells. That's why cells, one cell. So that's dense irregular connective tissue. Then we go to our example, dense elastic connective tissue. So that's basically from blood vessels. Yeah, blood vessels that we take from aorta, yeah, aorta. And then we can see the dense fabric in there. Yeah, pretty tight, pretty tight. That's another example here. Then we go to the third category for connective tissue. We say connective tissue, we got 5 categories totally. The first layer is loose connective tissue. The second one is dense. The third one is the cartilage. So cartilage connective tissue, they have their special locations. So basically, we're talking about connective tissue, other connective tissue. They will have a blood vessel. They will have a nervous sponge. But cartilage, without blood vessel, without nervous, they just kind of this kind of fabric in there and some elastic kind of fabric in there, mainly is fabric. So that's basically from special part of our organs, like voice box, yeah, voice box kind of organ there, and the ear, outer ear, and the tube inside of the ear. So we got a lot of location. They especially have cartilage. And the cartilage, yeah, cartilage, we still have subcategory for cartilage, yeah, subcategory. So some cartilage, like it is much clear. Yeah, you can see from one side to another side. So basically from some inside of some joints and costal kind of cartilage that's basically connected the ribs with the vertebrae and with the sternum bone, and also from the nose, yeah, and the bronchi tube, yeah, some part. That's we have a special category here. So that's some shape in there, some shape in there. And some cartilage, we call it a fibrous cartilage. Yeah, fibrous cartilage. So generally say fibrous cartilage is a little even more stronger. So that's basically perform supporting and protected function. So some picture example coming from this cartilage. So you can see basically it's a difference with last one. and elastic kind of cartilage. Elastic kind of cartilage still stronger, but also elastic. Yeah, elastic. So that can maintain some shape. So they still coming from different parts of the bodies and from different organs. So that's another picture for this kind of cartilage. So that's basically for cartilage part. Yeah, basically for cartilage part. So you can see how complicated the connective tissue it is. Yeah. During each of the category, they have subcategory. They have subcategory. So still remember, we just try to remember the big category for connective tissue. Subcategory just give you some example. Yeah. But we should remember the big 5 categories here. Yeah. We have loose connected tissue. We have dense connected tissue. We have cartilage. And we have a lot of subcategories there for cartilage. Then we're talking about bone tissue. So bone tissue, we know all our body, we're talking about the number of the bone, we always talking about 206 bone all over the body. But basically, we have 4 different types of the bone. That's in our anatomy we talked about already. One type of the bone we call long bone. And certainly we have some other bones, flat bone, short bone, irregular bone. All of the bones, that's mainly for storing calcium. And also, especially for the long bone, some of the flat bone, they can host for red bone marrows. So red bone marrows truly have function producing the blood cells. So that's the function of the bone tissues here. And for long bone, in the center of the long bone, they also have yellow bone marrows. So yellow bone marrows basically is the storage for the fat. So that's for the bone tissues. So bone tissues still separated for the different form. So we're talking about the bone tissue. We say we separate for compacted and spongy. So basically most bones is kind of compacted in the center, especially for the long bone. Like this part, yeah, this part. Certainly long bone in the center, they have a cavity here. They holding the yellow bone marrows, but both sides is compact, yeah. You will talk about detail in our anatomy class if you are not in anatomy class before. But the two ending part belong to the appendage. That's the place holding red bone marrow and producing blood cells. So that's basically the bone tissue. Just one picture here, one picture here. So that's coming from the harder part of the bone, condensed. Then we're talking the liquid connective tissue. Liquid connective tissue, we're only including two parts, blood and lymph. Blood circulation in the artery and the vein and heart. Lymph are coming from extracellular fluid and through the lymph systems, lymph vessels, and finally connected with the vein and return back to the heart, and then circulation all over again. So these two systems is connected each other. So blood circulation, still connected with tissue and connected with extracellular fluid in there. So basically, mainly part, blood plasma part, that's the mainly part of the blood. Certainly, we have some cells inside of the blood. For lymphs, only mainly have liquid and also have some protein. Some of the blood cells, but not red blood cells. Like some lymph cells will go to lymph circulation also. But generally speaking, both blood and lymph belong to liquid connective tissue. So thus, we say, we look in the blood tissue under the microscope, you can see how bigger times here. And then we can see some red blood cell. And we also have different kinds of white blood cell, basically 5 different kinds. And we have platelets. That's the blood cell part. And then we have liquids, the others, liquids and protein. So basically blood plasma, including the liquids and the protein, blood protein.